Hello and welcome to NARC Live on Wednesday 16th of February 2022, coming to you live from Norfolk on the east coast of England with Tammy M0TC.
Hello.
And me, David G0KYA. Great to see you on tonight's show. Our very own Steve G0KYA on how to achieve your Worked All States Award. Do you remember CFAX? Well, it's back, believe it or not. And we find out what on earth this is. Now, we've had a few entries, but if you know and you'd like to quickly pop it onto Facebook or on BATC, we'll include that when we go to that part of the section of the show in a little while's time. But we start with some really important news, especially if you're actually a NARC member around here in Norfolk. Because last night we had a committee meeting to discuss really this year and in particular events and meetings. And we would like to discuss these things with you. So rather than try and give you a summary of all that committee meeting now, we're going to have a forum in 2 weeks' time on March the 2nd. That's just 2 Wednesdays' time. And we're going to share everything with you. And we would like to hear from you about what you feel. Because let's face it, and of course I'm talking about COVID, it affects all of us in different ways. We all have probably different views, but I think most people would agree that certainly a lot of things are starting to go back to normal. So we want to do this in a sensible, a measured way, but with your blessing, and carry along all the way along, as we have with NARC Live. NARC Live was here to keep the club together, keep it informed, keep it entertained and everything. But as we get more into 2022, we want to talk to you about what you think and what we should do. And maybe there are slightly things that we doing differently to how we were when we used to meet physically every week. But I don't want to preempt anything. We'll want to know what you think. So that's something to look forward to in 2 weeks' time. We'd like as many of you to join us as you can. You'll be able to join us on Zoom. So you'll be able to talk to us and to the committee and to everybody about what you feel about things. And of course, you'll also be able to contribute on BATC and on Facebook as you usually do. And we'll also be sending just before that a specific questionnaire. It will come like the newsletter. So if you're already signed up for our newsletter, it will come on that, but it'll be called a questionnaire. And there's about 5 or 6 specific questions that we'd like to hear from you, because that way we've got some facts and figures that we can come back and say this is what people generally felt. But the discussion on the night is very important. Now, to kick this off, one decision we did make last night for sure is our first event for 2022. And International Marconi Day is something which the club has been involved with for pretty much, I think, 12 years, as our guest later on will confirm. And International Marconi Day is on Saturday the 23rd of April. And I'm very pleased to say that this will be a real in-person event at Qso Lifeboat Station. I won't talk about it much more now, because it will be nice to talk about it to the organiser of that event, Steve Nichols, G0KYA, who's actually also our guest speaker tonight. So we'll talk to Steve in a little while about what that will entail. But that's something to look forward to. NARC now, starting to plan real meetings, real get-togethers. But don't forget that date in 2 weeks' time, please, for the forum, online forum. And it's a good reminder to you, as I've been saying for some time now, if you haven't renewed your membership with NARC, and I know quite a few of you actually haven't, well, the things that I talked about, where the online membership fee at £5, that applies for the whole year if you join before we start meeting. But soon we start meeting, we will obviously have completely different expenses, hiring rooms and things like that, and we will have to have membership fees very similar, if not the same, or even maybe more, to what we had before. So all I'm saying is, if you put off rejoining your club, then for all sorts of reasons, we'd ask you to do it now. Details are on our website at norfolkamateurradio.org. You can find out details. You can play in various ways. We like it to be online directly if you can, but there are other options to pay by PayPal and cheque. So please don't put it off anymore, because we'd love to see you rejoin your club. Now, on to other things. Now, last week, Tammy sort of enlarged the brief of the show, really, by talking about something nothing to do with radio particularly, that just came out, was about stamps.
Yeah.
And shocked quite a few people, I think. I was surprised, certainly me as well, that the stamps as we know them, which are labelled up with first and second class, are going to be made obsolete at some point. Tammy's done a little bit more research.
I just got a couple of facts and figures, basically.
Right, well, please share away.
So this is what a new stamp's going to look like with the barcode on it. So I remember seeing some of those on our Christmas cards this year, I think. So with that bit down the side.
So that will still be a postage stamp. You'll still be self-adhesive. We peel it off.
Sticky, okay. Yeah, just as normal.
It looks like the barcode's separate to the stamp. That's curious. I'm just saying.
I wouldn't have thought it actually is. I should think it's just because that's how the stamp is printed on. I would have thought. So it's from the 31st of the 1st next year, so the end of January next year, 2023. So any that have basically got first or second on, you can't use after that.
Which don't have a barcode.
Which don't have a barcode.
Okay.
And they're going to do a swap out scheme, which starts on the 31st of March this year until the 31st of March next year. And you'll be able to go online and print a form and basically swap some of your stamps for ones with barcodes, but they're just saying at the moment they don't know if there's a limit on that.
Okay.
Like if you've got like 1 million
well,
stamps.
Well, at least we have to say, we've got a fair bit of notice. There's 13 months there.
So you better start sending letters rather than writing emails.
Yes, that's right. And if you've got a big stock of those stamps, then
do something about it.
Well, thanks for that consumer information, our consumer champion, Tammy. Now, we've heard from Victor, G0KYA. And he said this splendid Eddystone EC10 Mark II only arrived with Victor last week. It was from the Stevenage Club's silent key sale on eBay, and he'd noticed it the previous week before successfully bidding on Monday, thereby fulfilling a long-held ambition to own a Mark II. Rob G2BKZ from Stevenage kindly drove up to Campton to deliver the set personally to Victor and revealed that it had been found in the box in the corner of the shack of their recently deceased member Martin Jew, M0XJP. Clearly it hadn't been used for some time, hence its remarkable condition. This was delightful news for Victor because Martin was also a fellow member of his own local club, the Shefford and District Amateur Radio Society. The 10 covers 550 kHz to 30 megs on AM, SSB and CW and has band spread and a tunable BFO plus a large speaker which sounded very good when listening last night to the BBC Home Service. And it has a lovely tone. And as Victor says, it kind of keeps it in the family, doesn't it, David? Well, thanks for sharing that with us. That does look a fine radio. Nicely leads on from Steve's talk last week, doesn't it? Mm. Now, at the top of the show, I showed you that picture, which you must remember from not that long ago. Tellies had, a lot of tellies anyway, had CFAX built in and was probably the earliest kind of, for many people anyway, before computers and modems and things like that, was the earliest kind of information on demand that we had, well before the internet took over. Well, James G7PQF sent us details of that, and he says, I know how you like retro tech and thought you might like this. The content is downloaded automatically every half an hour from BBC News website, and others then updated automatically in a CFAX format, all set up by a 20-year-old, and there are instructions how to run a Raspberry Pi and feed into a television. And James said that he heard about it on Jeremy Vine's show. Well, you've got a live link, I think, to that, Tammy.
I've got it live here.
This is what it looks like, and we'll give you the link of the actual place you can go to watch it yourself shortly. And this is genuine. So what you're watching now is
numbers there.
That's right, and that's exactly what happens. So you can go to this. You remember to wait for a page to load. Look at that. Cool. And I thought, well, this can't really be live, can it? So Tam, do you want to?
Well, it's got the time up there.
You've got a virtual remote on the right.
So I'm going to go. I've just some regional weather 402. So I'm going to go on that. Although I think this is set in Northern Ireland, so. It's the Irish.
Oh, that was quick as well, and they're not always that quick, was it? Sometimes, depending on how far it was through.
Yeah.
Can you try another one?
Let's go back to the main menu.
Oh, no, you're going to wait for it to load. That was so authentic, isn't it? I wasn't quite sure whether the 20-year-old who wrote this is using a Raspberry Pi to drive this on the web. I guess he might be.
We'll press red for headlines.
Okay.
Which is one.
Because I remember there were some pages like news were easier and quicker to get. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Look at that. So if you do yearn for the past, as I do, and I think once you get to a certain age, you love things from the past, that look curious. I'm not saying it would replace the web for you, but that is a wonderful thing to go. James, thank you very much for sharing that with us. It's a good reminder to everybody as well. I mentioned last week we're going to do a retro evening, and it's going to be on 9th of March. Not long, 3 weeks I think that is tonight. So start thinking about the retro technology, whether it's radios, amateur radio, or other things that are just technology, retro, that you want to share with everybody. It was very popular when we did this before, and we'd love you to share that with us. That'll be in 3 weeks' time, so start collecting it together, please. Now, last night at 5 p.m, I was invited to attend an event, an online event that is, by EACH, the East Anglian Children's Hospice. So you may remember that the club raised a very healthy £1,284.82 in its fundraising last year for that nominated charity. This is what it looked like for me. On the right hand side there was my invitation, and they basically explained a lot of the work of EACH, and at the end said a big thank you to everybody. So I thought I'd just tell you all about that. And it's a good reminder that fairly soon we'll be having an AGM. Not sure if that'll be in person or online, but whatever, we will be asking you as NARC members to nominate your charity for the club to support this year in its fundraising efforts. And as always, it's a democratic process. So I don't need those entries just yet, but please start thinking about it. And if you've got a charity, a particular charity that you'd like the club to support, as you can see, it can raise a significant amount. That was an extra large amount, I think, last year. Typically, though, we'll raise £500 or £600 for a charity in a year. So please start thinking about that. I'm probably stating the obvious here because that we can hear the wind here in near Attleborough, and I expect you've got the wind wherever you're watching this, at least in the east of England at the moment. But just a reminder that it is going to be very bad on Friday. It's going to be worse than it is now. So if you have masts and aerials and things like that, or you know somebody who has and needs maybe a reminder, then don't forget to get those antennas and things down to safe heights before Friday. And and one other thing just to tell you as well, we do normally send 2 newsletters a week. I send, I sort of trigger them, contributions from people like Steve and Jim and Roger and Phil, the contest news and the bits that I write as well. And I send one on a Friday or Saturday normally, and also on a Monday. But we've got some issues with sending out newsletters, so you may not have had a second newsletter to remind you what's happening on tonight's NARC Live, etc. this week. That we hopefully will be solved. It's not our problem, as it were, it's the server system that we use, because there's over 300 people receive that newsletter. So bear with us. If you didn't get a second one this week as normal, then you should get one by the end of the week, as usual, we hope. I think that's enough talking from me, don't you?
Enough talking?
Little people, Tammy. Now, this is your department, really, isn't it? But before we go on to yours, I think we've got someone who sent us a little people from someone else. Neil Bowers sent us this. So it isn't your little people, is it?
No, it's not.
So this was on the RSGB Facebook page last week, and it is little people. Can you see what that is? I mean, it's got a converter and models built by Ron Ham as a teaching aid.
Teaching aid.
Yeah.
There's an antenna on there, isn't there?
Yes. And a little shack, I guess, in the bottom right. Anyway.
Looks cool.
That was nice of Neil to send that to us.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
It was.
But now what about your little people,
straight
Tammy?
to the little people. Here we go. This is called Electric City.
Oh, great.
So it's old fuse boxes.
Oh, I see. Do you know, I missed that. I was trying to look at it and think, well, they always improvise and use it.
You were just looking at the train, weren't you?
Well, I was looking at the trams. I love trams. Yeah, I love trams almost as much as trains. Well, they're kind of trains, aren't they? On tracks. Wow, that is brilliant. A fuse box. Look at that. Ingenuity.
Yeah.
I think that looks like a Japanese fuse box. Looking at some.
Well, it is from Japan.
Isn't it? Yeah. Miniature-calendar.com. Have a new picture every day, and Tammy chooses one for us. Thank you, Tammy.
There's one other thing, actually, before we go.
All right.
I've been looking back in the archives.
Yeah.
And number 100 today.
100! I can't believe it. It is show 100.
What do you need when
we
it's
know it must be getting
like
on for 2 years. Oh, Tammy, when did you like those?
Hey.
I didn't see you do that. Oh, bless you.
But you're not allowed to spit on it.
Well, this is something, for all sorts of reasons, COVID is one of them, that we can't share this.
The smell coming from this cake is...
Do not come at the door. We will not let you in. This is for us.
I'd like to say I made this myself, but I didn't.
But you didn't know. And this was only literally an hour or so ago.
It was
you realised
that we realised,
it was 100. So this was all a bit quick and improvised. I hope you'll celebrate with us at home, though, and whatever your favourite tipple is, whether it's tea or coffee or something a bit stronger. And although I guess we're the ones who sit here every week and do this every single Wednesday, apart from that very first one when we had a problem. Yes, thanks, Tammy.
It's like see flame.
I'd like to say a big thank you to you for watching it and contributing and interacting, and of course, if you and any of our speakers who we've had over those mad 100 shows as well. Thank you to all of you, because if you didn't support it, we certainly wouldn't still be here, sitting here doing it.
No.
And if someone had said to us even vaguely that we'd be doing it 100 shows, we just wouldn't have believed them, would we? Not for a moment, anyway.
I remember you saying to me after the first couple of shows, if we've got to do this until August last year, you meant.
Yeah, that was
summer.
2020.
Or no, 2020, yeah. I don't know what we're going to do.
Well, no, that was the problem. I mean, as I've said this before, the biggest fear, I think, for us is the problem of coming up with something fresh and interesting and everything. But, you know, thanks to the great range of speakers that Roger books, a lot of those, of course, and the interactives and things like that, and you just being there and sending us stories and pictures and everything, that does make it. And hopefully it's kept us, the club, together in these difficult times, and it will mean that we can come out of it even stronger, I hope.
Yeah.
But meantime...
Are you going to blow these candles out?
Well, we'll both do it, shall we? This is the first. Should we lift it up so they can see it at home? This is real. These aren't one of these little LED candles.
No.
This is when wax goes all over our expensive computer.
That's true. There you go.
Should have rehearsed that.
The fire alarm will go off now.
Yeah, I hope not. Okay. Anyway, congratulations,
right.
100.
I've got a knife.
Right. Okay. I just mentioned it. We'll try and have a bit of that later on as well, and hopefully you'll celebrate with us. So, what have you been doing? Don't forget to keep in touch. This is the email address to send us details of what you've been doing. Doesn't have to be radio related, but we love it if it is. But if it isn't, just a bit of news, radio@dcpmicro.com. Send it to us by absolute latest on a Wednesday at 3, and we'll be sure to include it on that show or one very, very shortly afterwards. Thank you very much indeed. So now on to that competition. It's our second. Remember all those shacks that we did? We did about 60 odd of those. So this means this is about the 30th one of these.
This is 27.
Is it?
Today.
Okay, there we go.
Yep.
Tammy, the lady with the numbers. So what did you make of this? What on earth is this? It's one of our members sent this in. I can reveal actually it's Peter Williams who sent us this picture.
It looks like a wheel off a real souped up car, doesn't it?
It could be a number of things, couldn't it? And it's a sort of, no, it's not a trick picture, but it is taken from a specific angle. And I think there's some clues there to show that maybe it's been opened. Have we got anybody guess anyway?
We had one guess I saw. Somebody's just sent an image of a fire engine. They're obviously thinking about
Thank you for that. You still can't come in though. Not until we finish the cake.
Tony M0TDK says, could it be a cross-section of a coax?
Oh, good. Yeah, I like that. Tony, thank you.
I think that was the only guess we had online.
Okay. Well, let's read out what people thought. Simon M0SIH said, the item shown on What on Earth is a magnetron. It's a common object found in microwave ovens to produce the microwave energy used to excite the water molecules in food to heat it and cook it. Paul G4ZBA says, I think this week's item is the inside of a magnetron as used in microwave ovens. Neil G4JUV said, someone has sawn their microwave oven in half, revealing the innards of the magnetron used to generate the microwaves. Google suggests this is a really bad idea because there is a risk of inhaling highly toxic dust from beryllium oxide insulators. And I'll come on to that, and that's absolutely right. So don't go and open your microwave right now to do this before you've heard from me.
Tom GAXQD says, Magnetron Teardown, and now the microwaves have all fallen out, so the oven will not cook anymore. Alternative answer, a bobbin holder from a Chinese sewing machine.
No, it's not a sewing machine. Look, it's just not a sewing machine. Steve G0KYA said, I think the mystery object this week is a magnetron cavity. And that's what everybody thinks who've entered. So the answer is, it is the inside of a magnetron cavity. If you look at the left-hand picture, you can see that's where Peter cut that in half. Now, it is absolutely important. Peter mentions it. I'll just read you what he said when he sent us the picture. The inside of a microwave magnetron cut open. Apparently not wise because it contains beryllium, as do some TO3 transistors and things. And that is absolutely right. So please do not do that at home. You don't need to now anyway. You can see what's inside of it. But it really does carry some nasty stuff inside there. But Peter's done it for you anyway. Why would you bother to do it? He does just show us also the various pictures of other bits and pieces inside the microwave that he did before he dismantled it. Peter Williams, of course, is one of our Bright Sparks instructors as well. So thank you very much for that, Peter. Certainly got a few guesses coming. Well, not guesses, people who knew what that was, but other people weren't.
It's just so shiny, isn't it?
It's lovely, weird, isn't it? It's copper as well, yeah. Really wonderful thing. And it is the main bit that, as Simon said, that excites and cooks up your food. So, what have we got for you this week? What on earth is this? Now, I can't give you any clues. All I will say is that I thought I knew what this was until I read the words that went with it, and then I realised I didn't. Now, that might or might not help you, because you might know exactly what that is, but it's a fascinating one. Let us know by next Wednesday at 3 o'clock absolute latest, or sooner if you know. And radio@dcpmicro.com is everything for the show. Send it to there and tell us what you think that is. Brilliant. Yes, so thank you very much. And just to tell you what's happening on the club this week. That's right.
You've forgotten where we are.
I've frozen. I'm so looking forward to a bit of fruitcake, to be honest. Haven't had much to eat today at all. On Sunday at 7 o'clock on GB3B, it's the GB2RS News. On Monday at 7:30, it's the Monday Night Net with host me. Yeah, I'm going to do it. Someone said you always ask other people to step in and do it, and this is a Monday that I can do. So I'll be running the net on Monday night. And as a subject, I thought, because we've got this retro thing coming up in a few weeks, we'd have a talk about retro stuff on there as well. Plus anything else you'd like to talk about, of course. But that's a suggestion. Talk about a warm-up, really, for our retro evening. We can talk about some retro technology. And boy, have we got some. And
then everybody can fish it all out and take pictures of it ready for the
Exactly.
NARC Live.
It's a double promotion,
Good
really.
idea.
I'm going to make use of it. At 8:30 on Monday as well, we've got the 80-metre CW net on 3.543 megahertz. And then next Wednesday, here on NARC Live, the 23rd of February, Everyday Field Day with W0PHX. I don't know much more than that, really. I guess, though, and speaking to Roger, who booked that talk, we think it's, that every day can be a field day. So we're looking forward to hearing from George next week on NARC Live. And don't forget, in 2 weeks' time, the week after that, we've got that members forum. Really important because we want you to participate and get in touch. Either ideally live on the night, but also there's that questionnaire that we'll send out as well. We'd love to know what you think we should be doing as a club this year in 2022 to start getting back together again safely. And of course, as always, send us your stories and your pictures and everything else to us, and your mystery objects as well. If you've got any of those that you want to submit, send them to radio@dcpmicro.com. And we'd love to hear from you. And also this card, sadly, several people we were told about who've been ill this week. In fact, we sent 3. I think it's a long time since we sent 3 cards, but this is the card which we're happy to send to anybody at all you think will be cheered up by a card, whether they're celebrating, whether they're just not feeling well. Just drop us a line to that address. We'll add your name to ours and send it off immediately. Well, now I'm really pleased to say, a little bit later than planned, we're going to our main event. I don't know about you, but Warped to All States is not something I know much about, and Steve G0KYA offered to give a talk on that, and we'll be coming to that. But first, Steve, good evening to you, by the way.
Good evening.
Good to see you. Steve, firstly, we're going to talk a little bit about Marconi Day, because this is an event that you've arranged for the club now for about 12 years, I think you told me earlier.
Well, yeah, I think the first one we did was 2010. So whether that makes this one the 13th or the 12th, I'm not too sure. But it's a fun event. Basically, International Marconi Day is on the nearest Saturday to Guglielmo Marconi's birthday. So this is why it moves a little bit, every year. And it's a time when stations are set up at locations that were linked to the inventor back in the day. Places like Poldhu, Cornwall, the Lizard, Bass Point, and then across Italy, they have lots and lots of stations there as well. But not just in Europe. I mean, there's stations in Uruguay, in America. So it's a great event where everyone gets on the air. It's not a contest, so there's nothing to worry about in terms of getting points. You can get an award if you work. I think it's about 20 of these stations. You can get a nice award that could go on the wall. But this is the first time in 3 years that we've actually done it in person at Qso. We're going to run 2 stations. The plan is to run 2 stations, one on 40 and 80 meters and one on 20 meters and higher. Normally we've just stuck on 20, but now the sunspots are beginning to come up a bit. I think we can get some activity on 17, 15, and maybe even 10 meters, so we'll see. So
just briefly though, Steve, can you tell us then the significance of Qso with this? You mentioned lots of other places like Poldhu and places like that. So what was significant about Qso?
Right. Well, Qso was had a Marconi station set up in 1900, and it was set up in the high street in a place called Pretoria Villa, and it was used to communicate with ships and later the cross sand light ship, because there was some dangerous sands just off the coast of Qso, and it was there until it was closed down in 1929. So we managed to get the history of this from a local historian, and we've got pictures of it. I think you showed one earlier, actually. So we can't obviously run the station from the original location. So we approached Qso Lifeboat and said, "Hey, can we do this?" And they said, "Yes, fine." So that's why we go to Qso Lifeboat. So it's a historical event. We are celebrating what Marconi did in Norfolk, and we have a lot of fun as well. So there we go. The thing is, we have to set the station up in the morning, so we get there about 8 o'clock and bust a gut to get the thing on the air by 9 o'clock. So there we go.
And it's of course going to be very significant and special for the club as well, because it is the first event, aside from really Barford last year. Certainly the first event we've done this year to launch sort of some new events, and we'll be giving people more details, and you'll be issuing a roster and things that people can get involved, won't you?
There'll be
nearer the time.
Yeah, a little bit nearer the time. It's a little bit too early yet, but we'll have more details. You can find out all about the history of the Qso Marconi station at QRZ.com, actually, on our GB0 CMS page on there. I just updated it this afternoon, and we'll have a roster that people can sign up to. So we'll have it in an hour-long session. So there'll be sessions for 40 and 80, and sessions on 20 and above for people to sign up to. And I'm guessing we'll be using CW, sideband, and probably FT8. I think I just heard Roger spitting his coffee out at that point.
Probably. Well, it's lovely. It's lovely to have something like that to look forward to. And just to remind everybody again at home, you can pop the date in your diary. You don't need to do any more at the moment. The 23rd of April is the date, Saturday, the 23rd of April. And it will be the first event that the club will be running this year in person. So anyway, tonight, though, Steve, we've really asked you here to give us this talk on Worked All States, WAS. So we look forward to that. And of course, as always, you can ask questions and make comments on Facebook and BATC, and we'll read those to Steve at the end. But now, over to you, Steve. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a good idea, because I think that anybody who's got any tips that I don't mention will be very, very welcome, because it's a tricky thing to say. Just before I start this, I've just got to tell you this. Raytheon developed the cavity magnetron, and the first use as an oven was by accident. I don't know if you knew this, but
it's fascinating.
The scientist who was developing it for World War II, I guess, had a chocolate bar in his pocket, and it melted, and they couldn't work out why. And that's how they found out that what you could do with microwaves.
Fantastic.
Don't think it did his leg a lot of good, but if you Google it, it will tell you all about it. But I used to work with Raytheon, so this was a story from them. So it's a true story anyway.
I was going to say, it isn't one of those. It did sound like it might be one of those folklore things that got exaggerated.
Well, that makes you wonder, but Google it and see what you find anyway.
All right, lovely.
Anyway, let's get on with Worked All States Award. So. The Worked All States Award is available to amateurs worldwide. You don't have to be in America, and it's very easy. All you have to do is have proof, either by QSL card or by Logbook of the World, that you've contacted each of the 50 states of the USA. So that sounds pretty straightforward, doesn't it? It shouldn't take too long to do that, I wouldn't have thought, but you'd be surprised, actually. You have to be a member of the ARRL if you're an American, but if you're not in the USA, you're exempt from that. So anybody can do it, anyone can take part and get the award. I think you have to pay for it, as we'll show later, but it's not the end of the world. It was introduced in 1936, and at the time, you had to work 48 states of the USA at that time. But since then, they've introduced Alaska and Hawaii as well, making it a total of 50. In a way, that's good because it makes it a nice round 50. In another way, it's actually quite hard because working Alaska and Hawaii are not the easiest states to work, but we'll talk about that later as well. And this is what it looks like. Now, you're probably thinking, why aren't I showing you my award? Well, I haven't got one, actually. I'm still working on it. I've still got 2 states to get. And this is not, I think the first thing we have to say about this is it's not a 5-minute job. You could easily take a couple of years to do this. Maybe if you can do it in 1 year, you'll be doing really, really well. But it's the sort of thing that you have to put a lot of effort into it to do it. So we'll have to talk about how we can do that later. Now, there's a map of the states, just in case you're not sure where the states all are. And this is a map I downloaded from what I thought was the ARRL, but it's not actually. It's not the ARRL's map. They've just put ARRL branding on it. But the thing is, if you look at this map closely and then look at this little chart at the bottom that you tick off as you work the states, you'll see it's got the Virgin Islands, US Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico on there as well. No, that shouldn't be on there. That was a mistake. You do not have to work the US Virgin Islands or Puerto Rico to get this award. It's just the 50 states, the standard states in America. I actually emailed the ARRL and asked them, and they said, well, why would you want to work Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico? They're not US states. And I said, well, they're on your bloody map. So there we go. But it's not their map, apparently. Someone made it. But what I would say is, if you're going to worked all states, this is a good place to start. Download this map with the thing at the bottom. You can tick off the states as you can get them worked and confirmed. As I said, to confirm it, you either have to have a QSL card or more easily now is Logbook of the World. I'm not going to go into Logbook of the World tonight, but that's a 2-hour lecture in itself. But it's a way of confirming contacts. You upload your log. They upload their log, and if they match, then you get a credit on your Logbook of the World account. So that's how LOTW works. So it's a much easier way of doing it. It's a faster way of doing it. But the only trouble is it's a little bit complicated because you don't just update your log. It has to be signed by this program. So you could argue it's a little bit of a messy way of doing it, but it's once you're set up with Logbook of the World, you're fine. It's not a massive problem, but to get your head around it at first is a little bit complicated. So anyway, that's what you have to do. You have to make contact with 50 states in America. So how hard can that be? Well, quite hard. So you need to make two-way communication to be established, and there's no minimum signal report required. And you can use any or all the bands except 60 meters. That's 5 megahertz. And the District of Columbia may be counted for Maryland. So if you work, Washington, D.C., I think is in District of Columbia. That counts as Maryland. Not that I think you would work anybody in Washington, D.C., to be honest, or District of Columbia anyway. And this made me laugh. It says each claimed contact must include contemporaneous direct initiation by the operator on both sides of the contact. Quite what that means. I think you can make a sked with somebody. That's not a problem at all. But it's expected to be a two-way contact, not done locally or by remote or by logbook. No, not logbook. What's the thing? The internet-based system. I can't remember what it's called now. But
not Log of the World.
No, not Logbook of the World. It's the Internet Relay Program. What's it called? I can't remember now. What you can use. Program. But it has to be on the radio waves anyway, so there we go. And contacts may be completed over any period. So if it takes you 10 years to get this WAS award, that doesn't matter. And must be confirmed in writing, preferably in the form of QSL cards or, as I said, Logbook of the World.
Was it Echolink?
Yeah, that's the one.
Did you never guess? It was Tammy who said that.
Oh, no, really? Yeah. Well done. Well done. I haven't used Echolink for years, so... I guess it still exists. Confirmation must show the applicant's call sign, band, mode, date, and time, and indicate that the QSO was two-way. So that's an interesting point. So you can't make a whisper contact with this and claim it. You can do FT8, that's not a problem, but whisper is a one-way communication, more of a beaconing tool. So you can't claim a whisper contact with one of these states and say, there we go, I've heard that state, therefore it's done. There we go. Now, what type of work tool state awards are there? Well, the first one that I would guess that most of you would go for would be the mixed work tool state awards, which is using a number of modes, any modes or any bands. And that's probably the easiest. I use the word easy in inverted commas because it's not an easy thing to do at all. But there's also, you can go for a phone work tool states or a CW work tool states. If you're really, really keen, you can go for satellite work tool states, RTTY work tool states, which I think that would be very, very hard to do, or digital work tool states, which is getting easier now because you've now got FT8, FT4, and the other modes. So it is probably easier to get an all digital work tool states now than it was maybe a few years ago. But I would recommend that you go for mixed in the first instance. On top of that, there's also five band work tool states where you've worked every one of 50 states on all of these bands, 80, 40, 20, 15, and 10. Now, you'll be really, really keen to do this. I know somebody in the club who's doing it, and he's come up with the same problem that we all come up with, that certain states are really, really hard to work. But if you really are that mad, certainly go for 5 band work tool states. That'll keep you going for about the next 30 years, I think. And there are also awards for doing it on all of these frequencies that I've listed at the bottom there. Now, if you can do work tool states, SSTV even, that would take some doing. Mm-hmm. So again, I really wouldn't bother. I would go for start off with a mixed work tool states and see where you go from there. It's okay to supplement a logbook of the world application with QSL cards. And why would you want to do that? Well, not everybody is on Logbook of the World. And I worked a station in South Dakota recently who was not on Logbook of the World. So I'd have to get a QSL card off him. Unfortunately, he doesn't have an email address either. So I've left it for now because I'll try and work somebody else who is on Logbook of the World. But it's okay. You can do an LOTW application supplementing QSL cards with Logbook of the World. But as I'll show you, there's a little bit of expense involved if you do it like this. So it's probably a good idea to just go for Logbook of the World application in one fell swoop and just do it like that. And it's getting easier than it was because more and more people are now on Logbook of the World. This is how much it costs. So international there, you'll see it says £12 to get the certificate. And £15 to ship it, and you can have a lapel badge to show everybody how clever you are as well. And application fee for Logbook of the World is only $5, so it's not too bad. So this is why I say if you can do it via Logbook of the World, it's the best way to do it because it's easier and quicker and cheaper as well. For example, if you start sending cards as well, QSL cards, then the minimum cost for that is $31 for up to 10 cards. And a lot of people now don't do QSL cards, don't want to do QSL cards. So I think that I would either go for a mixed award with LOTW, Logbook of the World, and QSL cards, or just all Logbook of the World and do it at that. And it's doable, it's just not easy. So what sort of bands can you use? Well, this is my chart. Just to give you some idea now, I've got 48 of the 50 states confirmed. So yes, I've got Alaska. Yes, I've got Hawaii. They worked out to be relatively simple compared to a couple more that we'll talk about in a minute. But these are the bands that I've used to do it. You'll see that 20 meters is probably the best band or optimum band to use, especially with sunspot minimum. But as we now head towards sunspot maximum, you'll see that 15 meters, 12 meters, 10 meters actually start coming into their own. I worked one of the states on 12 meters just about 2 weeks ago, so it's very possible to do it. And I think when we get up to sunspot maximum in 2025, 2026, 10 meters will really come into its own. I mean, 10 meters, you'll work the states with 10 watts SSB, and you work an awful lot of states. And what about modes? This is the modes that I've used to get to 48. You'll see the predominant one there is CW. That was my choice more than anything else. But increasingly now, digital is becoming into its own. So overall, I think there's about 26, 27% of my contacts have been digital, of which they have been FT4, FT8, and RTTY. FT8 is now probably the easiest way and most popular way of working some of these states. But it's a case of knowing when they're on and the best time to work them, which is what we're going to talk about in a minute. Phone, yes, you can do them on phone. Not a problem at all. But if you think you're going to make phone contacts with Alaska or Hawaii every day, think again. It's not going to be an easy thing to do. So what we need is a technique to give you an idea of what are the best times to try and work some of these states, and how can you do it? Are there certain months, say, when they're better than others? Well, how difficult is it then? Well, let's have a look. So you could go on the air maybe this weekend, and probably these ones on the left-hand side, you could probably work them quite easily. I think if you went on for an afternoon when there's a major contest on, and I think there's a contest on this weekend with an ARRL contest, you could work maybe 10 states quite easily in an afternoon. But Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, Florida, Texas, etc., all very, very easy states to work. Somewhat harder, maybe Montana. I've put California in there. There's some very, very big stations in California who are very, very loud. So that may be not the case. But Utah, Idaho, and Washington, maybe a little bit harder to find. And then the hardest ones, I think the hardest states to work are places like Rhode Island, which is tiny, about the size of the Isle of Wight, I think, Alaska, as I've said before, Hawaii, and then maybe some that you hadn't really thought about before, North Dakota and South Dakota. I was reading today, and a lot of people are saying, it's really, really hard to work North Dakota and South Dakota, and Wyoming as well. Why is it so hard to work North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wyoming? Well, they're a long way over. They are quite a way over into the States. Has got distance to start with. They're over 4,000 kilometers away, but there's not many hams in them, and they're not very active either, as I'll show you in a minute or two. So these are the states there that I put down as easy, harder, and hardest. And don't forget, you've got another 33 more states to work after these. So hence I say this could take you a couple of years or more to get the award, which is kind of makes it fun and also frustrating at the same time. When you first start, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. Oh yes, let's go there. Tick Texas, tick Massachusetts, tick New York, lovely. But Montana and Washington State, not so easy to work at all. Utah, as I said, not easy at all. So it becomes harder as you go through it until it becomes very, very hard indeed. So how are you going to work these people? Well, this is a list of ideas that I come up with which might help you. Contests, I said, very, very important to work. Some of these states are not very active at all until there's a major contest on. CQ Worldwide, which we've had already, that was a kind of October, November thing, was probably the best contest to try and work some of these states. They have state QSO parties. We'll look at this in a minute, but certain states have QSO parties where they try and encourage everybody in the state to get on the air. And so if you know that particular state is taking part in a state QSO party, that's a good opportunity to get in there and try and work some of them. PSK Reporter is another site that we'll show you in a minute, which is good for FT8 and FT4 contacts. They're using the DX cluster. DX cluster is okay, but it doesn't often tell you what state they're in. So you sometimes have to sort of spend some time with the DX cluster and QRZ.com to try and work out where these places are. And as I said, when you first start, when you don't care who you're working, you can probably knock off 10 or 15, maybe 20 states just like that. Reverse beacon network, another one, and DX Watch. We'll have a closer look at DX Watch shortly to show you how you could use that. And then virtual state nets. Now, this is okay, but some of them, like the 3905 Century Club, that you can't work from 3905. That's outside of our band plan. 3,800 is as far as you can go up. So maybe not so useful. And some of these other nets are kind of the wrong times. There's a Triple H net there is 0700 hours on 40 meter SSB. It's getting a little bit late in the day to be working SSB on that kind of on 40 meters. I think in a couple of months' time, it'll be virtually impossible to work the states 0700 hours. It's probably marginal now at best. But have a look at these nets that I've listed. They might be useful for you. 1010 or when the sunspot numbers come up a little bit higher, 1010.org have nets on there, and they're very easy to work 1010 members on these frequencies on 10 meters. So just ideas for ways to work some of these states, because they're not easy. This is an example of why it is quite hard to work some of these states. This is, no, you can't see this, but I've actually put my there we go, hamspots.net/state_logbook of the world, hamspots.net. I just had to move my, I've got two little images up the top corner, which is what you're seeing, and I can see myself as well, but I put it on top of the URL so I couldn't see it. Uh-huh. This is an example of using the search facility for Logbook of the World per state. So this is Wyoming, and these are the states that have been spotted on there in the last 2 days. And this is Wyoming. Now, if you look closely at this, you'll see that there are only 2 stations on 20 meters, and they're both using FT8. So if you wanted to work Wyoming, really probably wouldn't get there on 50, might get there on 50 meters at the moment, but 15, 17 or 20, you've basically got a choice of 2, maybe 3 stations, and they're not going to be on every day either. So this is why, you're trying to find a needle in a haystack. And that's Wyoming. If you look for South Dakota, it's not much better, to be honest. So there's only 8 stations in the whole state have been spotted in this time. And you'll see that some of them are using 80 meters. Well, that would be really, really hard to work Wyoming on 80 meters. And some are using 10. Well, at the moment, with the sunspots the way they are, you're not going to work Wyoming on 10 meters, I don't think. Oh, look at that, 6 meters, even harder. But look at this, all FT8 and 1 FT4. So if you're saying to me, right, I need Wyoming, well, I would say to you, well, you've probably got 3 stations to choose from. They're all going to be using FT8, and I would probably go for 20 meters. But if you have a tool like this, you can at least see who's active in the state, and you can keep an eye open. What I've done now is I've loaded these call signs in on another program we'll talk about in a minute. So it shows me if these people are active, and then, bang, you go in there and you try and work them. Right, okay. Now, this is another way of doing it. DX Watch is another site which you can use. DXWatch.com is a site that you can set up a watch list. So I've set up a watch list on my DXWatch.com, and I've put in all the call signs that I've ever found for South Dakota and Wyoming. And if I can watch this, and if one of them comes up, they get highlighted. So let me just show you what it looks like. So first of all, with DX Watch, you have to put in some filters. So we have to say, what zone do we want? So I'm looking for the central zone of North America. And I put the fact that I'm in Europe, and I put the band I want and mode any. So that's all loaded up nicely. And then this is what comes up. So as you can see, all the spots that you see, which could be FT8, might be CW even, they come around, and there's not lots of them. Look, this is 1904 there, and this one's through to 1300. So there's, what, 6 hours there, I think. And of all these, there was only one in South Dakota, and it highlights it. It's highlighted it for me. So there are two ways to do this. You can either get on the air and just trawl through the airwaves trying to find these people, or you can use tools like this to make it a little bit easier. So KT0A on 1462 was a SOTA station, Summit on the Air station, who is on Logbook of the World, and that would maybe workable on CW, possibly. Thing about SOTA is they're on top of a mountain, so they're nice and high, and they've got a very low noise level. So even on 14062, he probably means he wasn't running an awful lot of power, but sometimes you can work miracles. But that was the only station on that afternoon when I did this check. So again, this is why I've still not got worked all states, and I still need South Dakota, because on that particular day when I was active, only one station on in South Dakota, and he was running QRP up the top of a mountain. So that tells you everything. Right. So just to confirm again, so that's dxwatch.com, and then you can load in a watch list of stations that you want to try and work, and if they come up, it will highlight them. So it saves you a lot of time and effort to do that. JT Alert is another program that you can run with WSJTX and what's the other one? I can't think. Oh, JTDX as well. So this one, you can load up what states you want, and it will ping and tell you that this station is on. I don't really use it. I must admit, I've got the other techniques I use, but it does work. But if you're trying to work states, this is probably something, and you want to use FT8, this is probably one of the better ways of doing it. So that's JT Alert. I'm just trying to think. Gordon is the expert on this, to be honest. He's the best person to talk to if you hear him on the air, because he'll tell you exactly how to set it up. And then other things. So state QSO parties, we mentioned this earlier. So if you look at this list, in February 26th to the 27th will be the South Carolina QSO party. So if you want to work someone in South Carolina or even North Carolina, there's the times you need to be on, and your chances are you'll find somebody calling CQ, or state QSO party or South Carolina QSO party, and you can actually try and work them then. So that's at contestcalendar.com/stateparties.html. So again, when you're first starting out, and Minnesota is not an easy state to work, but at least you're guaranteed on that particular day, or you were guaranteed on February the 5th, to be able to work some of these. Idaho, there's another one, not the easiest state to work at all. Louisiana, not too hard. Mississippi, Missouri. It's always stations on from Missouri for some reason. I don't know, but every time I've been on, there's someone on from Missouri. But that's another technique you can use. Get it in the diary so you know. You could say to yourself, okay, on this Saturday, I'm going to work somebody in Nova Scotia. Well, no, you don't want Nova Scotia. It's not one of the states, but Idaho or Wisconsin or somewhere. And you only need to work one, if you think about it. As long as they're on Logbook of the World, you've worked them and you've got it confirmed. That's all you need. So you move on to the next one. And this is how you slowly build your way up to 50. And there's a website called stateqsoparty.com. that has lots of resources and shows you, again, who's active and where. And so that's worth having a look at as well. Right, now, this is another site, hamspots.net/FT8. There's a chat facility in there, and you'll find if you go in there, people say, look, I'm needing AK, is that Alaska, I think, isn't it? And Vermont. For worked states on 60 meters. So you can put a note in there saying, hey, I desperately need Wisconsin, or well, not Wisconsin, but I desperately need Wyoming or South Dakota on this band or whatever. And, people can ignore you. I say that because I've never actually seen anybody put on here, oh, yes, fine, I'll be on in 10 minutes and whatever. But it's yet another way of finding out who's on, and who wants what. And I was reading today on one of these sites, and everyone was saying, oh, I need South Dakota, I need South Dakota. And it's no good emailing some of these hams saying, oh, look, I desperately need South Dakota. Will you come on at a certain time? Because they get so many of these, they get sick of it. When you think, as I said, there's only maybe 2 stations on, they just get inundated with people saying, oh, can we have a sked or whatever. I did do it once with a station in North Dakota, and we had a sked on CW, and he was barely audible, and he was running a kilowatt, so that wasn't going to work. But it's a way of increasing your chances of getting a Works All States award. Now, the other thing you're desperately going to need is a Maidenhead Locator Map for the US. Again, if you Google one, you'll find there's lots and lots on there. This was the icon one. And why is this? Because, well, with FT8, when people are calling CQ, it says CQ, it's got the call sign, and it's got their locator square. Now, some of these locator squares are only going to be the state you need. So if we zoom in on Wyoming, you'll see that DN 51 to where we got 51 to 54, 61 to 64, 71 to 74 is all Wyoming. So if you see that one of the call signs coming up is in DN 51 or DN 74 or whatever, you'll know they're Wyoming. So again, I think with JTDX you can load up the squares that you want, and you can. There's South Dakota. Look, so you've got what is it? 83, DN 83 to 85, DN 93 to 95. So if somebody is calling CQ and that's their locator square, DN 95 or DN 83 to 95, they're going to be in South Dakota. So you can check it on QRZ.com to check that that is in fact where they're still living or they haven't moved. But there we go for it. So I think a Maidenhead Square map of the US is essential for doing this. Now, what else do we need to know? Well, we've talked about what states you need, right? Fine, tick. We'll tick that one off. We've talked about the Qso parties. We've talked about some of the nets that are available, and some of the techniques you can use to find them. But the other thing is you need to know what time of day do you want to try and contact these people. For example, if I want to work somebody in Wyoming or South Dakota, there's no point going on in the morning. There's no point going on at lunchtime, and there's probably no point of going on at 9 o'clock at night. You need to know the precise time to actually work these places. So this is Hawaii. And what's so special about Hawaii? Well, it is one of the hardest states to work. And also the other thing is, if someone from Hawaii comes on, the whole world's trying to work him. So you're up against it. You really are. I worked Hawaii on CW a couple of years ago, so I was lucky. But let's have a look at some of the techniques we can use. So this is VOACAP. This is an online program. VOACAP.com is an online program now. So it's free of charge. And if we put Hawaii there, you can see that if we put the receiver in Norfolk and we put the transmitter on Hawaii, you can see that that's the Great Circle path. Now, that instantly tells you we've got a problem. It's a kind of a polar path. The signals are going to be coming through the polar region, which means if we have a high K index, they're going to be very, very disturbed, and will either be very, very fluttery if you can hear them at all. So this tells me, looking at this straight away, that if you want to work Hawaii, do it when the K index is low, maybe 1 or 2, and has been low for 2 or 3 days. So that's a good way of just checking the path. And Hawaii, I think, and Alaska are both the same. When I worked Alaska, the K index was running at about 2, and it was a very fluttery signal. And it took about 3 or 4 goes for him to hear my signal. I did it with CW, and we had to have quite a few repeats. But I was absolutely certain he was going to get me, so I repeated it quite a few times. We eventually got it. But it was a very fluttery signal, because these signals that are going up and through the auroral regions are, disturbed by it, and they are a bit noisy. So, for example, this is VOACAP again. So it's a very easy program to use, but like everything, you have to play with it. So this is an example of a path to Hawaii in February on 50 watts with FT8. And I've put the antennas in as a 3-element on 20 to 10 or halfway dipole on 18 below. And this comes across on this vocab chart. And this shows you the optimum band to work them. And you can see there that is 77% probability. So that's 5 o'clock, 1700 hours on, where is it, 20 meters. There we go. So in other words, if you're trying to work Hawaii on 20 meters, if you're not doing it at 5 o'clock or between 5 and maybe 7, you're wasting your time. Likewise, if you want to work them on 40 meters, which again, that'd be a hell of a job, I think, you're really looking at the middle of the night, 4 till 7. So this is a very easy, vocab is a very easy tool to use to just work out the best band to use and the best time. You can see there that there's no propagation predicted for 10 meters at the moment because the sunspot number is just too low. But 15 meters, 10%, maybe 20% chance. But what have we got there? 70 meters, yeah, that's another good band. So it's looking like 70 meters and 20 meters are the optimum bands to try and work Hawaii in February, between about 5 and 7. So that's it. So this is how I'm showing you that if you pick a state, you've got 50 to choose from. Pick a state, work out the best times to try and work these people, and if that corresponds with a Qso party, even better. But this will save you calling CQ, Hawaii at 10 o'clock in the morning, which would be over here somewhere on 20 meters, when you've got about a 10% chance of doing it. So this is why I said, plan your work tool stage and you'll get there. This is a vocab chart again, showing the signal to noise ratio and circuit reliability. So we've got a 65% chance of working Hawaii, but look at that, it's between 5 and 6. Once you come out of that time, it starts to fade off completely. This was on, 20 meters. So again, I really wouldn't bother trying to work Hawaii unless it's that time. So you can absolutely pin down the best time to work. I'm not saying that you might make a contact with Hawaii outside of these times. There is always a possibility that you'll do it. But this is, if you're a little bit short on time, I think like we all are, this narrows it down. Now, another program you can use is ITU-RHF prop, the terribly named program from the ITU, but it's available at Proppy or soundbites.asia, Proppy, and it was developed by, long story, it was developed by the ITU, but it was then made as an online tool with the Propagation Studies Committee and with the help of programmers around the world. And John, I'm trying to remember the name of the guy who did this one now. I think it was John helped us with this. And at one point we had pred test as well. Well, pred test is now finished. Gwyn Williams has decided not to continue with pred test. So Proppy is the program to use. And so you can see there, works very similar to vocab, but it's a slightly different engine that drives it. James Watkins, that's it. James Watkins did the work on this. So I've put one end, I've put the receiver on Norfolk, and I've put the other one on Wisconsin. No, not Wisconsin, Wyoming. I'll get it right in a minute. And we get the same sort of effect. So we get a similar chart here. So this shows you, again, if you tried to work Wyoming on 14 megahertz, 20 meters, then probably 2 o'clock, 1400 hours to 1500 hours, 1700 hours is the time to do it. And you will look that at the moment, there was nothing really going to work on 10 meters at all. 15 meters, yeah, and 21 megs, 15 meters, and 17 meters, 18 megs, all good to work that particular path. So again, it's a way of planning what you're doing to save you wasting your time, as I said. And signal strength's not going to be that strong. I mean, on this base, this was about an S3 maximum. So there we go. So I think the thing is, when you use programs like ITU-RHF prop and VOACAP, is be honest about the antenna you're using, you know, and how much power you're using. I think VOACAP defaults to 1500 watts, but you obviously need to knock that down to whatever you are using. Also, be very careful, because some of the stations that come up on DX Watch are using antennas in the loft, or they're using very, very poor antennas, poor verticals. And you're not going to work them from the US. So you really, from the UK, you really need to find somebody with a tri-bander or equivalent, I think, to make it easier on yourself. And are you going to do this on 10 watts? Probably not. FT8, generally 50 watts is kind of the minimum. But I think if you've only got, what do they call it now? Not a Class B license, foundation license.
Foundation or intermediate, maybe?
Yeah, foundation or intermediate. And well, intermediate, you've got 50 watts, there's not a problem. Foundation, you've only got 10 watts. So maybe the Work to All States Award, you can have a go, definitely, but maybe you need to work towards a full license to get it. You know, if you get Work to All States Award running just 10 watts, I take my hat off to you. Well done. But it's not going to be easy. Right, now, this is just to show you how hard this is. This was me walking N0VMD, who was in DN74. So I think that was one of the, it's either Wyoming or South Dakota stations. And you'll see he actually replied to me. So I was really excited, but he was only at minus 20 dB, it was FT8. And so, of course, after that, I said, right, thank you. And my response was G0KYA, you're minus 20. And that was it. Never got him back again. So I never got it confirmed. So this is why I say it can be very, very frustrating. Even with FT8, I mean, this would have been minus 20. You wouldn't have heard him on CW at all. But, you know, if you want to get the award, you've got to get these things completed so you can get it in the log. And that wasn't completed. That was an incomplete contact. So there we are. So I hope I haven't put you off too much, but I think it's doable. I think if you set yourself maybe a 1 year, maybe 2 year project to get Work to All States Award, that's probably the best way to go about it. Here are the prediction software URLs that we use, vocap.com and voprop as well. And G4ILO is a great little program called voprop that you can run on a PC. But in a way, they've been overtaken by vocap online and Proppy, the Soundbites Asia website as well. So you can do it all online. You don't need to run anything on a PC at all. But just, you know, enjoy yourself with it. Don't make it a task. You'll enjoy it, but a number of people I've spoken to who say, oh, I still need Montana, I still need South Dakota, I need Wyoming. And I think everyone's in the same boat. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say, oh, I still need Texas, because they seem to be on every day and very loud. But anyway, I hope I haven't put too many people off, and I've maybe encouraged people to at least think about trying to achieve a Work to All States Award. And I would wish you good luck. So I don't know if we've got any questions, David.
Okay, well, I'll let you have a quick grasp of something or other there, Steve. While we do, yes, indeed. If you have any questions or comments, or maybe you've gone for this award or you're working towards it, we'd love to hear from you now on BATC or Facebook. Let us know in the usual text document and we'll read that to Steve. One question I was going to ask you, Steve, I don't think you quite answered it, although clearly you're saying, you know, set yourself a target maybe 1 or 2 years. Is there any time limit at all for this?
No, I don't think so. I don't think there is a time limit at all. So as long as you fulfill what they want you to fulfill, which is that you know, it has to be done via Logbook of the World or via QSL cards, you can take as long as you want. And probably 2 years is maybe the minimum kind of time you can do it. Obviously, if you've got a well-equipped station, if you've got a tri-band at 100 feet and you're running an awful lot of power, it's going to be easier than if you're running it on bits of wire. But I've got to 48 out of 50 states just running wire. antennas. So that gives you some idea. It's possible to do it.
Yeah. I mean, 50 or 52 doesn't sound very many in a way, does it?
I know.
At one country, and all going to speak our language, the native language as it were, so that makes that bit easier if there was any problems like that. But I mean, it clearly is more difficult than it sounds. I wondered, is this a possibility of something to maybe, now that the world's opening up a bit more and you fancy going to America for a holiday, is this something that you could set yourself up as a target? Would it be much easier to work it from the States itself?
I think it's a lot easier to work in the States. I was reading today a guy is selling a little QRP radio, 3-watt QRP radio he's built, and he built it just for worked all states, and he's achieved worked all states, and so he's selling it. So it's a lot easier from the US. Actually, that's a good point. If you're trying to work to get the award, you've got to do it from your home QTH, haven't you? You can't go to America.
I don't know. I don't know. Oh, okay.
No,
all right.
No.
So you can't do it mobile
Qso KYA.
Right, yeah. Beg your pardon. So you can't do it mobile or stroke A?
You can. Well, no. Could you do worked all states mobile from the UK? I don't know. But you certainly couldn't do it from the States, because you'd be G0KYA. You'd have to be /W6 or whatever. So that would be cheating.
It was worth a try.
Yeah, it was worth a try.
Nice excuse for a holiday. Okay, I mean, what other advice, Steve, we've got a lot of newcomers coming to the hobby in the last couple of years, especially, who are watching this, and okay, maybe they only have the 10 watts that they're allowed at their M7 level. But to give them the best chance, I know I'm being very broad here, but what sort of antenna do you think you really need the best chance to get something like this award with the States?
Well, the best antenna is probably the one that you actually got.
Okay.
In other words,
yeah.
I know somebody who debated for a year what antenna he should put up and never actually put one up. He's actually a member of the club. I'm not going to mention his name, but that always got me. He never actually put one up. He just debated which one would be the best one to put up. I think a beam, obviously, on the higher bands would be better. 20 to 10 would be much better with a beam. But if you haven't got a beam, then you have to make do with what you've got. So dipole, to be honest, is probably the most efficient antenna you can put up for a single band, compared with a multi-band antenna or a beam. So string up a 20-meter dipole and run it kind of north-south or northeast, southwest. That would be a good starting point, at least. Some of these states, I mean, they're going to be hard to work on 80 and 40. 80 meters, you could probably work New York State, Massachusetts, and like that, but only maybe a couple of hours before sunrise, or at night at least, in the winter. But it's absolutely pointless trying to do it in maybe June. So it's a case of picking a time. I mean, we're now coming away from the optimum time to work the States, I think. And it will still be possible to do it through to April, May, but June is not going to be a good month to work the States other than multi-hop sporadic E. So again, if you're planning to do this, get started definitely right away, but you'll find that most of the activity, once we get beyond about May, it will fall off until the autumn again. And then end of September, October, that's when things really take off. And you'll probably work most of your states in October, November. And then you could try and tidy up in the new year. So it's all a case of playing with the propagation charts and working out the best time of year to do it. And VOACAP will actually print out, if you do maybe a UK to, say, Wyoming, it will print you off a year's worth of charts. And you can pick the best month to work it. And it's probably going to be November. And that would probably be the best month to try and work Wyoming from the UK. Its propagation is tailing off a little bit now, and it will continue to tail off as we head towards the summer. Certain times of year are better for certain paths. For instance, around the equinox, sort of vernal equinox and spring equinox, autumnal equinox and vernal equinox, I should say. That's good for north-south paths. So if you want to work the South Africa or South America, September and March are the best times to do that. The best times to work the US may be October, November, and December. So we're now coming out of the best period to work the states, but you certainly can work it maybe for the next couple of months or so until propagation drops off sort of May, June, July, August.
Okay. Well, we haven't got any questions or comments. I don't think that's because there's
They're all
no
asleep.
interest. No. I think it's because they're probably all starting to look at PropQuest and all those other sorts of tools as well and working out how they can do it. Steve, as always, thank you very much for making a subject like this so accessible. It gives us something to work for. Contesting isn't for everybody, so this is an ideal thing that you're being vaguely competitive in that you're going to go for an award, but you can take ages and ages for it for a few years, and you've given us the best possible tips and information to do it. Steve, thank you ever so much for tonight.
No problem at all. Thank you.
There we are. That's Steve G0KYA. Nice to see our own homegrown guests and speakers as well. So just to quickly tell you then what's happening next week on the club. On Sunday, it's the GB2RS News on GB3MB at 7 o'clock. On Monday Night Net, it's at 7:30. It's with me on GB3MB, and we're going to talk loosely on, I'm suggesting retro technology, but it can, of course, be anything you like. Look forward to seeing many of you then and talking to you. At 8:30, the 80-metre CWNet on 3.543 megs. And next Wednesday here on NARC Live, it's every day can be a field day with W0PHX. Looking forward to that. And, of course, don't forget 2 weeks' time as well, that forum. Really important. We want to hear what you think generally about what the club should be doing in terms of physical meets and events and things this year. And obviously don't forget to keep sending us your stories and your mystery objects and everything as well. And we look forward to that. We're about to have our Christmas cake, because that little cake that we had, as I said, we only realised that genuinely about an hour or so ago, or probably 2 hours ago now, that this was the 100th programme. So rushed home and got that Christmas cake that, it's one of those things you put aside, you think, well, wait for a special occasion. Was it still in date? Do you know?
Does fruitcake go out of date?
I think so. Anyway,
better eat it quickly.
We're going to have some of that now. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. We look forward to seeing you next week for NARC Live. But from now, from Tammy M0TC.
Bye-bye.
And from me, David G7RP. Take care. See you next week. Bye-bye.